apologies again for the tardy start, but we're going to forward straight into it, right? This afternoon session is the first event that's going to be hosted by the School of Drama for this calendar year. And it's an event that we did not schedule, but we were happy to have it scheduled. This event, as you know from the flyer, and I suspect from the projection right behind me, is called Black and Free. And it's a reasoning with Dr. Naila, Keleta-Mae, who is here with us this afternoon. My purpose here this afternoon is to offer an introduction, which I hope is really very simple. And then we go into the talk, and then we open it up for some conversation with the rest of us. And then we'll have a closing. The closing will be a thank you from our principal, Dorothy Campbell, who is here. Principal Campbell is here. She's here, right? And she will do the closing. So this is the intro. The Black and Free. Once I got the title of the project, it was easy to say yes to the offer of having Dr. Keleta-Mae here. And this is the reason why it was easy. Whatever we're thinking, the entire enterprise of the Caribbean is black and free. And this is how we reason it. We reason it by first addressing Haiti, which is the first spot of land in the New World to declare itself free, where the enterprise of the New World is the enslavement of black people and the mashing up of the lives of indigenous people and the displacement of a whole heap of other peoples. That's what the New World is about. Haiti gives us a constitution that says that will end. And in that constitution, it says, there's a clause that says, all Haitians, which should probably be all humans, are black. Let me just say it one more time, because I've been working with that for years. It's a haunting thing. The Constitution says, all Haitians are black, shall be called black, shall hereafter be called black. So the idea of a declaration that is locating in the consciousness of its own people and in the consciousness of the world, that every single person on that spot of land will be called black in a world that is built on whiteness, is the dreaded stroke of resistance, of reparations, and of freedom that we will ever know. It is on that basis Haiti becomes our mother. It is on that basis that every single other person in the Caribbean who has tapped into that has tapped into the idea of a black and free. It is also on the fact that in every single aspect of our performance in our lives, because this presentation is also dealing with expressive culture, in every single aspect of our lives, from masquerade and carnival to Rastafari, that's all we ever been talking about. So what we are dealing with is a part of the world that is the center of the world, that is the Caribbean, that has been saying to the rest of the world, black and free, and has been inviting the rest of the world to join in that party from a long time. That's all we've been about, nothing else. So, when Dr. Naila Keleta-Mae says, I have a presentation and I want to talk about something called Black and Free, which is work that she's been doing, the easy answer is yes. because that is the inheritance of this spot of land. Dr. Naila Keleta-Mae is a Dorothy Killam Fellow, Canada Research Chair, Royal Society of Canada College member. She's Associate Professor at the University of Waterloo and a multidisciplinary artist. She's the Principal Investigator of Black and Free, a research creation project that brings together artists, academics, students, and the general public through multi-year research partnerships with private and public sector organizations. Keleta-Mae has authored the books Beyonce and Beyond, 2013 to 2016, published by Routledge in the UK, and Performing Female Blackness, Wilfrid Laurier University Press. And she is co-editor of the peer-reviewed journal Theatre Research in Canada, researches, this is a French word, let's go, Théâtrales, have it? Théâtrales au Canada. Her music albums are Fire and Woman, Bloom and Freedom, South Africa. Her plays are What We Deserve, No Knowledge College, and Stuck. And she has performed in Canada, France, Jamaica, and South Africa. Keleta-Mae has also commentated for media outlets, including the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Business News Network, CTV, the Canadian Press, the National Post, the Fader, Today's Parent, and the British Broadcast Corporation. And she's here today, a daughter of Jamaican parents, to share her work with us. Let's welcome, please, Dr. Naila Keleta-Mae.
These empty rooms, empty walls, we can fill them with our love, new memories, make new memories. No tables yet, we've got no chairs, but good times we will share, new memories, make new memories. If we build it from the ground up, build it on real love, build it on a firm foundation. Oh, this could be amazing if we build it from the ground up. Let's paint the world the way we want. It's our time, do it now. New memories, make new memories. If we build it from the ground up, build it on real love, build it on a firm foundation. Oh, this could be amazing if we build it from the ground up. It doesn't matter how much time it takes to get there, 'cause I know I feel a change in the air. If we build it from the ground up, build it on real love, build it on a firm foundation. Oh, this could be amazing if we build it from the ground up. What does it mean to be Black in Canada? Canada is a geopolitical context where various ethnic, linguistic, national, and religious modes of Blackness have collided for centuries. According to Statistics Canada 2021 census, the population of Canada is 36,991,000 people. 0.4% of that population, or 1.5 million people, reported that they identify as Black. Within that Black population, 40.9% are reported being born in Canada, 32.6% in Africa, including Nigeria, Ethiopia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo in particular, and 21% were born in the Caribbean and Bermuda, 8.8% in Jamaica. So I've long been thinking about what it means to be Black within the context of Canada, where we are such a small minority of the population, and yet a very vibrant minority of the population. I first wrote about that in many different ways, but I write about it in my book, Performing Female Blackness. I'd like to read an excerpt of it for you now. As I write this, I am 1 1/3 full. So I wrote this some time ago, so this is not accurate for my moment right now. But as I write this, I am 1 1/3 full, 13 weeks pregnant with the first fetus that I intend to carry to term. Laden with the enormity of this intention, I have avoided telling extended family and friends, petrified by the possibility that biological unfoldings will trump the fulfillment of my intent. Simultaneously, the likelihood that my body will soon signal the heavily fetishized role of Black mother disturbs me deeply. I vacillate between a deep and abiding desire to share the news and an equally visceral frustration that my expanding uterus will soon betray the controls I have learned to put in place over performances of my personal life in public. Survival has become a heightened preoccupation of mine with each passing day. I suspect that my thoughts of survival are not musings on my present circumstances, but a heightened awareness of what is to come. In the days following their birth, my child's skin will deepen to a shade of brown that will identify them as Black when read along with the contours of their nose, lips, and hair in the geopolitical space that will most inform the early years of their life. As such, they will be a member of the 3rd largest visible minority group on Turtle Island, on the lands also known as Canada, and the 3rd largest visible minority in Takaranto, also known as Toronto, the metropolis where they will likely be raised. Will they be one of few Black children in their daycare? Will their hair be a site of intrigue that children and adults comment upon and touch? Will they attempt to rub the brown from their skin? When will they ask me why we call ourselves Black when our skin is brown? When will my child shift from simply being in the world to attempting to see themselves through others' eyes in the world? When will my inability to accurately recount our family's history beyond their great-grandparents fuse with their understanding of the broad scopes of imperial and colonial violence? When will they begin to understand that the Canadian national narrative includes limited articulation of the realities of people like their family members? When will they begin to feel and question the violent legacies and contemporary realities of misogyny and misandry in Black people's lives? Will they learn to perform to survive? How will I teach them to shift their performances into imaginative spaces of insight, power, and agency? Over the years, I have learned that inhabiting a body read as female and Black in contemporary Canada produces a relationship of suspicion with the world, one that constantly queries the premise of each interaction to parse apart the extent to which gender and race have defined its parameters and outcomes. In short, I argue in this book that people identified as female and Black are figuratively on stage, regardless of the public or private stage space upon which we find ourselves. I argue that in these conditions, performances become part of the ontology of female Blackness in Canada. So Black and free. How it started is from all of those musings that I've had as a child, understanding myself as Black in a space that, in a home that absolutely valued Blackness, but in a general public that had many questions and assumptions about what that meant. The project Black and Free started in 2017 when I was musing online in a bit of a Twitter rant. I guess now it would be an X rant, but a Twitter rant at the time where I was thinking about, it was around a significant birthday milestone, and I was thinking and reflecting about my life and about people that I admired and the ways in which I thought that they had lived with a kind of freedom and purpose that I found inspiring. And I began to use this hashtag, Black and Free. And then on the 18th of October, after using that hashtag for a few months, I shifted and decided that for the rest of my artistic and academic and general life, that I wanted to think about Blackness and freedom. And so this is where the seed and the title, Black and Free, came from. The question that emerged from that thinking when I moved it into an academic space and began to think about what that meant was, and the question that is at the heart of all of Black and Free, is what does Black expressive culture teach us about what it means to be Black and free in the 21st century? So the pursuit of freedom has been a central preoccupation of Black people ever since the advent of the transatlantic slave trade in the 16th century, when Europeans led the taking of Africans from their lands to build European settlements in North America and the Caribbean. For the past 5 centuries, Black people in these geographical regions have used performance, theater, visual arts, music, and other modes of Black expressive culture to imagine and advocate for freedom in the public and private spheres that influence everyday life. Understandably, much of the academic practices in the Canadian context are concerned often with anti-Black racism. What remains under-examined, though, is how Black people express freedom. And it is from this context that my research question emerged, that question of what does Black expressive culture teach us about what it means to be Black and free in the 21st century. My areas of expertise are critical race, gender, theater, performance, and cultural studies. My disciplinary training as a graduate student was in theater and performance studies. So that is the theoretical and methodological lenses that I employ in my work. So that's how it started. This is the question that's at the heart of it. And so for the rest of today, I'd like to talk about how it's going. So after 2017 and the Twitter rants, one of the things that are possible at the University of Waterloo is to do pilot courses. And so I pitched a pilot course called Black and Free, where I would think about Blackness and freedom. And so I taught that course for a couple of years, and I'm happy to share that it is now officially on the books as an undergraduate course at the University of Waterloo that can be taken as part of a Black Studies diploma. The other, thank you. That's my mom who started the clapping, just so you know. And so the question has remained the same, and there are themes that have emerged out of the research. It's been funded by an Insight Development Grant, which is a federal grant offered in Canada for preliminary research. So it began there in 2018 with funding from that. It has now grown to have received an Ontario Research Fund Research Excellence Grant, which allows partnerships with private and public sector organizations. It also is funded from an Insight grant that is allowing for some other work for me to do related to Black and Free, some travel, including being here in Jamaica now. And I've since also become a Canada Research Chair in Race, Gender, and Performance, which also allows for me to expand Black and Free in other ways. I am definitely speaking from a Canadian context where there is support. It's competitive, certainly, but there is support in terms of providing research funds to academics to carry out our projects. My project in particular is a research creation project, so what that means is that it's connected very much to the creation of art. It's not solely about more of your traditional forms of research. It involves and includes the creation of artistic work and the sharing of artistic work and processes. Black and Free has also now evolved into 3 different streams, the streams of sites, public, and art, all of which I will speak a bit about and highlight different aspects. So the themes. So Black expressive culture is what Black and Free is thinking about, and that can range from anything from blogs to visual arts, to fashion, to architecture, the many ways in which we express our culture. I'm thinking about it in 3 ways. How Blackness and freedom are imagined and reflected in different types of Black expressive culture. I'm thinking about how Blackness and freedom are performed in Black expressive culture. And lastly, I'm interested in what are the material conditions that make these expressions of Blackness and freedom possible. So some of the sites that I have visited since starting the project are here listed. And I've selected these sites for three reasons. One is their ongoing contributions to Black expressive culture. Another is their cultural prominence in that region or in that community. And thirdly, their performative qualities. So each site is a case study in Black freedom in the 21st century, be it freedom as a site of artistic creation, which was a case and is the case with Afropunk and Art Basel, both of which are located in the United States, or if it's freedom as a site of historical memory, Accompong Town, which I had the deep honor of visiting on Saturday for their celebration, and the Black Loyalist Heritage Center, which is in Canada, or freedom as a pedagogical imperative, right? So that would be the case with Freedom School and Afrotech. And Afrotech is an annual gathering of about 20,000 mostly Black people who come from North America and go to different sites in the United States to think about technology, to think about, well, this last year was mostly about AI, or artificial intelligence, to think about venture capitalism and how Black people can advance in this digital era. So this is like sites, the site stream of Black and Free. There are other travels on the horizon. The public part of Black and Free. So I started with sites and starting to go to different places and thinking about that. But I was also deeply interested in engaging people in the conversation. I wanted to be working with artists, to be working with the general public and not only academics and students. And so Black and Free has a very strong public presence or a public mandate as well. We are working in 5 different areas. One is theater education and training, which was a large reason why I reached out to Marvin George. And then also we've been commissioning new artwork by Black artists, Ontario-based artists, emerging and established. Lillian Allen, Jamaican dub poet, was one of our commissioned artists. And so each artist receives a $3,000 commission to create a work on the topic, a new work on the topic of Blackness and freedom in whichever mode of expression they are interested in using. We are also doing a lot of public programming that I'll speak some more about, digital assets that include a podcast that's, we've been doing interviews. Undergraduate students have been working on doing interviews over the last couple of years, and so that will be launching, I believe the schedule is later on this year. And writing articles about Black designers in Canada as well. It's a field, an area that hasn't had a lot of research done on it, so we've been thinking about Black landscape architects and different Black artists and designers who are working in the province and in the country. And we are also, will be producing or publishing 2 peer-reviewed books with Wilfrid Laurier University Press, likely in 2026, 2027. One is an anthology about Blackness and freedom that has chapters that are being written now by emerging and established Black academics in Canada who come from a range of disciplines. I'm really interested in interdisciplinarity, so they're sociologists, theater and performance practitioners, sound study academics, literature scholars, so a wide range of disciplines, health as well. So that book will be coming out, and then also an art catalog, a coffee table book that will feature all of the visual work that has been commissioned over the course of the project. It's a multi-year project, so we'll be with funding secured through to 2027, so there will be years of programming that are up ahead. So that's a bit about the overview of the projects that we're doing with Black and Free. These are some of the artists and scholars and student research assistants who have worked on the project in some kind of way in the last few years. We were delayed significantly due to COVID, like so many people, but we started our programming in a robust way at the beginning of 2023, and so these are some of the folks that we've been working with and who have been working with Black and Free. So these are the partners, private and public sector partners, as well as community partners that are part of this Ontario Research Fund Research Excellence Grant. And what that involved was seeking letters of agreement with different private sector and public sector organizations where I would approach people and said, I want to focus on Blackness and freedom. I see the resources that you have. I'd like to mobilize them in pursuit of these objectives and in pursuit of these themes and of this research question. And it's a multi-year agreement, so worked with Citizen Brand. Then the private sector companies are Citizen Brand, nor studio otherness, and that's it. And then from the public sector, we have the Ken Sealing Waterloo Region Museum, the museum, which is the name of the museum, it is called the museum. Young People's Theatre, which is the oldest theatre for children and young people in Canada. It's been operating for 50 years. And Wilfrid Laurier University Press. I was quite interested in also partnering with the university press because we know the value and the importance of publishing the work, and so that there are memories, physical, tangible aspects that are left after live performance. That is the perpetual challenge of live performance, right? That what are the remains, and how do we archive those ideas? And then we have our community partners, which are Freedom School, which is a grassroots community organization that really has a strong grounding in feminist politics and in LGBTQ plus perspectives, and does alternative educational programming for children, Black children and youth in Toronto. And The Edge is another one of our community partners that is also a grassroots organization working with children 7 to 10 years old and young people 16 to 19. So we've been partnering with them to do all kinds of different work around the topic of Blackness and freedom, and engaging children in that conversation and youth in that conversation as well. So I will now just highlight a few of the partners and some of the work that we've done, not because all of the work isn't important, but just in the interest of time and giving you a bit of an overview of some of the highlights, I guess, of the work that we're doing. So our partner, Ken Sealing Museum, we did an exhibition there, an art exhibition and a symposium that happened in March. It was meant to be the 25th to the 26th. The response from the community was so robust that it was extended for an additional week, with hopes and plans to do it again maybe later on this year. And for that art exhibition, there were 12 Black artists, each of whom received a $3,000 Canadian commission to create new work. An installation. I designed an installation, and we featured that work. And over the course of a weekend, we also had vendors, so 10 market vendors who came and shared their wares and sold merchandise, and community organizations who shared their pamphlets and were able to use that as an opportunity to reach out to Black communities as well. It was a free event. So far, knock on wood, I've been successful in having all of our partners waive fees that are associated with our programming, so that money is not a barrier to participation. So during the whole exhibition, the museum waived the entrance fee so people could come and go as they pleased. There was also a symposium where emerging and established Black scholars from the region, I invited them to come to see the exhibition, to listen to the interviews with the different artists, to view the artwork, to listen to the music, to buy things and just experience that. And then we had conversations afterwards about what had transpired and some of the dynamics of the work. And so many of those symposium guests are now the contributors to the anthology that will be published around 2027. So here are some images of some of the new artwork that was made and that was featured. I requested that the installation walls be painted Black because I was interested in seeing our work against a Black background as opposed to the traditional white background of museum spaces. What would it mean to contextualize the work in that way? And then in the middle, you'll see the gentleman wearing a T-shirt that in that white, it's the word Edge. And so he's from The Edge, which is one of the community partners. And so what I organized with the museum to do was to pay for transportation for the members of that community organization, their youth participants, to be bused to the museum. It's about an hour and a half away, to be bused to the museum to experience that day of programming and then to return home. So this is them at the gallery at the museum. Another aspect of the work has been a partner, Studio Otherness, and they're based in the Netherlands. And so Studio Otherness is really a graphic and design firm, a private firm, and they have been influential and really helpful in leading and defining Black and Free's graphic and visual language. They've provided consultation, design expertise, and access to their networks. There were brand assets that were designed by Ashley Tomlinson. So for example, the Black and Free logo that you see, that textiles that you're seeing, wrong side, the textiles over here. And so there are a series of different textiles that, images that we use, a collection of 7. So in this presentation, you're seeing one of them, but if you go to our Instagram page, you'll see many of them being used. And all of those, that brand asset and that language, visual language, was designed in consultation with Studio Otherness and the Black designer, Ashley Tomlinson, and myself, and we were looking a lot at textiles, at African textiles as a source and point of inspiration. One of the suggestions that Studio Otherness offered in our consultations, in my consultations with them, was to think about making a typeface. So just as you have Times New Roman or Arial or Courier, to actually have a Black and Free typeface. What would it mean to be able to not only think about Blackness and freedom, but to write something with letters that had been constructed with the idea of Blackness and freedom at heart? So that is something that's quite uncommon in a Canadian context to do. And so I was excited to do it and to think about doing it. We put out a design brief, again, deeply in consultation with and led by Studio Otherness, prepared a design brief of points of inspiration with the request to think about making a large-scale typeface that would only really be designed to appear in large-scale formats, and that would all be uppercase, that would have the full alphabet, that would have all of the numbers and the French accents. I'm coming from a French space, so we need the accent aigu, l'accent grave, etc. So to have all of that. And so we were very excited when we received the application from Tafui, who is a tremendous designer and artist who hadn't created a typeface design before and was quite interested in that possibility and prospect. And so over the course of many months and many conversations, Tafui began to work on creating a typeface. So from the design brief and her own research, she sourced these 3 patterns in particular that she felt deeply resonated with her when she thought about Blackness and freedom. And that was really the guide. Like, this has to be about Blackness and freedom. Every stroke of every letter, that's what we want to be and what I want it to be at the heart of it. So from these textiles, Tafui extracted these designs that you'll see here on the right. These shapes were the preliminary rough shapes. And so she has a quite elaborate and hands-on process of actually creating the shape, so it's not all done on the screen. There's a hand component to it. And as she was working with these shapes and was continuing her research, she found these architectural structures in her research that are based in Africa, I believe it was Western Africa, and that where she saw that similar pattern from the textiles reproducing itself in the architecture as well. So you can see that there in this building, in these 2 buildings. And so from there emerged the letter A. And then through more work and processes, Tafui presented us with A, B, C, D, E. And I'm really excited to share that we've now made our way all the way to the end of the alphabet. We've got all the letters, we've got all the accents, and are in the process of naming the typeface, so it will be called Black and Free. And the hope is at some point down the road that this will be made available for free publicly, so that anybody can think about and write whatever it is they want to write in a typeface that is coming from a place of and is deeply invested in Blackness and freedom. I'm interested not only in the results of things, but the process, and so that becomes a recurring theme as well. Another highlight of our work is at the museum. That's one of the public sector partners. It's a museum that's located in Kitchener, in the same region where the University of Waterloo is located. To date, we have commissioned and featured 9 artists. We created a new series called Black and Free New Art. It happened in January and February over the course of 6 Wednesday evenings. We'll be starting the series again because I've commissioned 3 new artists, and so the series will start next Wednesday, January 17th, and then it'll be a 3-week series, each week featuring a different artist who has created new work on the topic of Blackness and freedom. It's a 2-hour event that happens online and in person, so there are also the archives of the earlier editions are available, and what they are is that they really focus on the artists themselves. And so PhD research assistants from the Black and Free team research the artist's work, research the mediums that they're working with, and then they interview them live in front of the audience, and then the audience gets to ask questions, and they can approach the art and ask about how do you come up with a sketch, a design? How do you get from a concept to this finished work of art? And some of the artists that we've had have been performance artists. So in the atrium of the museum, we've had Miss Coco Murray, an artist on stilts with drummers and thinking about what it means to embody carnival and bacchanal in that space as well, and how those are all expressions of Blackness and freedom. So here are some of the artworks that have been created by artists who are commissioned to work specifically to be featured at the museum. That is there. Another key partnership that we have is with Young People's Theater. And so far we've done the 3 tenets or aspects of that partnership include playwright explorations, because I really want to see a play written for children and young people that is just about Blackness and freedom. I feel like only good can come from that. And Young People's Theater is a theater that is, as I said, over 50 years old and has all kinds of deep relationships with schools, where schools come in and see their main stage productions, and then they have Q&As, etc. So the hope that is to emerge from these playwright explorations is that a play will be written on that topic and one day produced as a main stage production. So over the and during 2023, we worked with 3 playwrights to just see, did they think that there was a story to be told? What could that story be? Could it be interesting? What might it look like? What would be the resources they would need to create it? And so I worked with one of my research assistants to also provide them with support. Like when they had an idea, we would do some of the research work for them and provide them with that support. We do that with the commissioned artists as well. They decide that they want to create work on whatever topic, and maybe they don't have the time or resources to do research work on it. So the research team will assemble a short list of open access resource materials and share them with them. And over again, the response from artists has been, we love having research materials. We love being supported in this way. And we're seeing the ways in which it's influencing their work. Part of what Young People's Theater already does is that they do community residencies where they work with community organizations. And so with Black and Free, the partnership is for them to work with Black grassroots organizations. So with The Edge, we did a series of workshops. And then also now with Freedom School, we are planning a series of workshops that are theater and education training and programming for children and young people and youth as well. And then we also had a scene study course. So last year we piloted a 5-week course for grade 7 and 8 students on the topic of Blackness and freedom, looking at Black playwrights in Ontario and going through their plays and introducing theater to many students who hadn't been exposed to theater before, or who had been exposed to theater and understood theater as something that had nothing to do with them. Right, because the topics and the ideas and the instructors, they just did not connect with them, and so we were able to do something different there. And so I'm happy to share that registration opens in a couple of weeks if you know anybody in Canada. We've waived the fee once again, so instead of a 5-week pilot course, this will be a 12-week course for grades 7 and 8 students called Black and Free Scene Study that will take place as part of the drama school that Young People's Theater already runs for young people and children. These are the 3 playwrights who did the playwright explorations with us. Does somebody know Samson? What? Wonderful. So these are some of the playwrights that we worked with to see what ideas were possibly out there. Again, you'll always see a range of emerging and established artists. Really, I'm invested in that as well. These are some pictures from our scene study course that sold out. It was free, but it sold out in less than 24 hours, and the Young People's Theater had never had that before. And they were particularly struck by the fact that the people who enrolled were people who had never enrolled in any of their other programs, who'd been on their list for however long and had just never clicked to say, I want my child to be there, or my child would like to be there. And so they were quite surprised by that and excited by that, and it was evidence for them that it did exist. And now for me, the impetus to do a drama class is because I'm a drama teacher. I've been teaching undergraduate, introduction to performance, first year course for years. And I see what happens when students come into the rehearsal hall and are exposed to theater and begin to understand their body in a different way, begin to understand space in a different way, begin to do movement. You see the shoulders begin to roll back. You see the head begin to lift. You see the person who didn't speak a lot begin to speak. The person who you didn't know was a joker become a joker, right? Like you get to see these experiences. And so I just knew that if we could do that for young people, that they would have similar experiences. And so that was the case with the drama school. Many parents spoke to me anecdotally about when's the next class, and I've never seen my child, et cetera, do this. And the Edge also, after they did their community workshops, talked about there was a particular kind of cohesion that came with the group as a result of them doing education programming. And while we are no longer working with them, because the scope of the grant was to do that year of programming with them, and now we're doing programming with another organization, they are continuing to work with Young People's Theater and are looking at how to integrate theater training and programming into their existing programming, because they now see the value of that and the value of the arts for their participants. So here is our community group, The Edge, as well. They already have, as part of their programming for their seniors, 16 to 19-year-olds, that they do a retreat at a college campus where they do leadership training, et cetera. And so with our partnership with them, we had them come to the University of Waterloo, prepared a day of programming for them to go to the Writing Center, to see what kinds of supports are available on campus for undergraduate students. So went to the Writing Center, they went to the Human Rights and Equity Office, visited with the Black Engineering Society for students. And so these are some images from their trip at the University of Waterloo, where they were focused specifically on Blackness. And it wasn't about, whether or not they go to the University of Waterloo isn't the point, really. It's just the knowing that you belong on a university campus, right? That you can be in those spaces, and in whichever university or college that they may choose to go to, that there are certain resources that they should begin to access and look for to support them in that effort so that they're not isolated. Again, because as I said at the beginning, we are 0.04% of the population. So you can be the only Black student in the class, the only Black student in your cohort. Like, these are very common experiences. And then the final stream that I'll talk about today is arts, and that is, for me, it's art making as an artist myself. That is my initial background, where I come from as a writer. And so the art stream of Black and Free comes through my Canada Research Chair. I'm working on a film series. I've never done film before, so this is a long-standing dream to begin to think about what does it mean to make ideas visual. I am in the process of working on my 4th album that will be coming out, and a new play, so those are all in the works, as well as my first work of fiction. So a book of fiction. So those are things that, are meant to be completed by 2027. So everything is underway. And then I must speak about the research team. So Black and Free, as a funded research project with grants, is all about training young people, training students. So we have undergraduate research assistants. I have undergraduate research assistants who work on the team, and PhD students who work on Black and Free as well. everybody has to be a full-time student in order to be part of the project, and the maximum that they can work per week is 10 hours. And so it is quite the, I think, exciting and definitely ongoing challenge to do the scope of work that we're doing with students who must prioritize their schoolwork, right? Because they're there to be to do well as students. And so I see my role as a supervisor is to assist in their professional development. The names that are highlighted in pink are those who are active members of the research team at this moment. Others have gone on to graduate or are finishing their PhD studies. Our present coordinator is Aisha Simpson, and these are all of the folks on the Black and Free research team. So please stay in touch. This is how you find us and where you can see what's happening with Black and Free. I invite you to take a picture and follow us on Instagram or on Facebook, where you can learn more about what we're doing at Black and Free. I must also express my deep gratitude to Dr. Marvin George, Dean of the School of Drama, for having me here today. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be able to share my work. I must also thank Dr. Honor Ford Smith, who is a retired associate professor from York University, who introduced me to Marvin years ago. I must also thank the principal of the Edna Manley College. Thank you for having me. All of the technical persons who worked on this presentation today in terms of lighting, sound, projection, and the live streaming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And lastly, I invite you to sing this when you hear the melody. And I will say, too many live in a tenements, crack, 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 facing problems that just won't relent. Yeah, yeah, too many failed by the government. Enough politicians need to repent. They give excuses in each instant and tell lies a regular event. Centuries old is our deep lament, but few want to hear us in the present. There's just one thing they must overstand. They can't expect people to be bland. Peace and justice go hand in hand. Freedom for all is our demand. Free from labels, free from chains. Free is what we're born to be, and free will remain. Yeah, enough corporations won't be outspent. Profit over people is too frequent. It's clear they don't want to live decent. These are the facts we could not invent. Good life for all to the full extent, not just the well-rich 1%. Condition no pretty, can't content, so we rise up, organized dissent. There's just one thing they must overstand. They can't expect people to be bland. Peace and justice go hand in hand. Freedom for all is our demand. Free from labels, free from chains. Yeah, free is what we're born to be, and free will remain. Yeah, free from labels, free from chains. Free is what we're born to be, and free will remain. One more time, please. Free from labels, yeah. Free from chains, yeah. Free is what we're born to be, and free will remain. Give thanks. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Please, I'm so interested to hear your thoughts, comments, questions. Please, I turn it to you. And I can repeat the question for the live stream audience who may not be able to hear. Free from chains. Free is what we're born to be, yes, and free will remain, yes, free from chains. I can hear the drums too, yes, free from chains. Please, what are you thinking about? I don't, if you say it, I'll say it back for the live stream. There's a microphone there, wonderful.
All right, so I was just saying thank you for the presentation. It was a fantastic presentation. Audience are here clapping. We want to give you another round of applause there. Thank you for this. And for us as faculty, it's predominantly faculty here and visitors and good friends of the Edna Manley College School of Drama and the other schools as well. Everybody's represented here. All schools are represented. I want to say this in the context that we're coming back into our new semester with our students, and one of the things that I found interesting in your presentation is the fact that when you mentioned the percentage or the percentile of who you're representing in Canada, I was a bit taken aback because I actually thought it was a lot higher than that. We have a lot of Caribbean individuals, Jamaicans moving to Canada for various things, students included, and it is striking for me that you have found such an audience for what it is that Black and Free represent. So my question to you is this: how is this being proliferated in Canada itself? How do you move out of the space that you're in? And two, how do you connect to the Caribbean individuals who are coming over into this kind of space and these experiences?
Mm-hmm. So the way that we connect, really, that was for me the impetus of creating the public side of this work and really being public facing. And seeking funding and partners to do that work. And so one of the key aspects has been that I've partnered with organizations that already have audiences, that already have spaces and venues, that already know how to bring audiences in. Now, that said, they haven't known how to bring in Black audiences necessarily, so then it becomes about a targeted marketing, becomes about word of mouth, sharing in communities, a lot of sharing on social media and through those networks to bring those audiences in. But it became important for me, I think, strategically, really, in terms of managing resources and working with a team that are students. So my role there primarily is to supervise and to teach and to develop professionally. We're not a production company, right, where you can just hire professional people and you're producing events. That's not at all what we are. And then there's always the research component to the work as well, and so having to document and create opportunities for the research assistants to learn and grow and to be able to publish their work and create new work, etc. So strategically, that's been really important, but it has definitely been about word of mouth and working through existing communities. And then in terms of connecting specifically with Caribbean populations, what tends to happen when my mom would often tell me these stories of when she migrated to Canada, of like if you saw a Black person across the street, you ran across the street. Right? And then you made sure that you connected with each other and you'd share all the resources of where to get food, where can you get your hair done, where, everything that you need to do to survive. And I think that while that is no longer the case necessarily in metropolises like Toronto, there is still very much the people knowing other Caribbean people and telling each other to come here, come there, and to connect in that way. And so that's been vital. I've also just been amazed by how the word spreads without us knowing or being intentional about it. So when we wrapped up our programming at the museum after having done programming for 2 months, I was leaving one of our events and this woman said, "Well, what are we supposed to do now?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, my friends and I, we were out last night and we were talking about that we'd been to each Black and Free event and now it's over. Like, what are we supposed to do now? We still live here, right?" And so I was like, "Well, follow us on Instagram and we will do something else and we'll hope you'll come." And so people have been talking about like, well, do you have a volunteer system? Can we volunteer? So there's, I think very much because of that need, there has been a response from the community. And also we're working not in Toronto where the largest population of Black people is, but really in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is already a much smaller metropolis, less than 175,000 50,000 people. It's a university town where people just come to go to school and then leave. There's a stable population there too, but a lot of it is that kind of people coming in and out because of schooling. But focusing there and bringing Blackness to those areas has been really useful, because there are Black populations there who don't have as many options as, say, Toronto, where you can go out and do something Black focused every day of the week. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please, and then I'll do it. Oh, okay, yes. Yes, please, the microphone is coming.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you. I happen to be seated next to my spirit sister, Shanice, and it so happened that we attended different boarding schools, but we have had a boarding school experience. Boarding school experiences in this country are about anything but enabling girls, women, to celebrate freedom and Blackness. It's not free, not free. And when I was at boarding school, about 7 decades ago or so, a long time, there was a dance being arranged for a church fair. But dances were for us at the British type boarding school. There were polka and Irish jig and that kind. And so I was advised to go and play tennis instead. The dancing wasn't for me. Many, many years later, I buck up Edna Manley. And I buck up the dance school. And I buck up NDTC dancers. And I had tutors who say, move your bottom, move your bottom, wah! Wah! That was liberation for me to discover that I had a bottom, that I was allowed to move, and I could free it up and be truly Black and free. So thank you for raising these thoughts, making them so close to my chest. And thank you, Edna Manley School. And thank you, in particular, School of Dance. I was in School of Dance classes up to last semester, doing folk and dancehall. Yeah. So I give thanks for this freedom, which is also for me. It's freedom, but for me, it's also life.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, thank you for that testament to the value and importance of art, right? Like the ways that it is deeply transformative for all of us. So thank you so much for that.
Hi, Naila.
Hello.
I love your project, Black and Free. I love the community aspect and everything, the depth and the breadth of it all. And I have a couple comments and one question. So in terms of my personal identity and your title, Black and Free, I don't identify as Black and I don't identify as white. And I just wonder if and how you define Black and if it's exclusionary or not. And there's this gray area of what is Black. If you have like of Black blood, are you Black? What? You know, I look at oops. But then is it the person's identity? Like, how do you define what gets included in Black and Free? That's my question. And I have forgotten my comment. Can I look at my phone?
Okay, I'll start with your question, and when you remember your comment, you can come in. So I do get asked a version of that question by all kinds of people, including Black people, right? Like, they want to know, like, what I mean specifically. And I have absolutely no interest in nailing it down. None whatsoever. So this is why I really wanted to preface the talk with the population, with the statistics, so you can understand, like, so for me to be in a space like Jamaica and to move through and just see so many Black people, this is just not my everyday life, okay? So, and so what happens in the context of being minoritized or a visible minority is that notions of Blackness become very specific and they become hyper-fixed. And they are defined not by Black people often, but by perceptions of us. So media interpretations of us, news reports about us. So it is not a self-definition, it is being defined. And then also from a Canadian context, we share a border with the United States of America that has such a strong and dominant, it's a kind of cultural imperialism, we could argue, right, of like what Blackness is and defining that and that term in a worldwide sense. And when you're a country where your percentage of Black people is quite small, and that small percentage is quite diverse, right? African, from various parts of the continent, Caribbean, from various parts of the Caribbean, and then you have Black people speaking a whole wide range of language. So we are deeply heterogeneous. So in that context, when you're being just brought to this myopic notion of what Blackness is, that is where the desire to speak about Blackness and freedom is coming from for me. I want to see a wide range of Blackness. We are nuanced, wide-ranging, with a range of political beliefs and values, a range of religious practices, spiritual practice. Like, we are everything. But that is not the messaging or what we are told and what we experience in a Canadian context. So I have no interest in defining what Blackness is. On the applications to be a commissioned artist, it is, do you identify as Black? And if you identify as Black, then apply to the project. And if your concept of what you want to create is like interesting and all of the kind of criteria that we go through, then you will be brought onto the project, and we will support you with research assistance, we'll feature you at the museum, et cetera, et cetera. And all of the artists, all of the commission work is 100% owned by the artists. There's no ownership. There's no copyright. All that I ask is that whenever an artist shares whatever they made through the Black and Free Commission, that they say that that's where it came from. That's all. The market vendors, when they come and they sell, there's no table fee. Every dollar they earn, they keep for themselves. This is not about, so again, because this is not a company and it's a research grant that's funded through taxpayers' money, and I don't get paid to be the principal investigator. I'm just really reallocating resources. Like, that's my job, to reallocate resources. And I'm really interested in bringing resources to Black communities in particular in different ways, and sharing concepts and ideas and conversations about Blackness and freedom with as wide range of people as possible. Yeah. Do you remember your comment? Did you want to share that?
I did, but then you said something, and it's very much like anthropology. If you go into a community and talk about them versus giving them a camera and say, tell me about your own self. So it's kind of like that, where who defines, let each individual do their own defining.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, my other comments I'll just tell you after, but thank you very, very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hey, girl.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm so grateful for like the people that I know, the few people I know in Jamaica who came today. Thank you, family and friends.
Naila.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, hey.
All right, big hugs, Carolyn.
Yeah, just a quick comment and question. As you presented, I got this sense of Black and free in the context of a safe space for Black people, where we can come into this space and express ourselves through our various cultural expressions. However, your comment where you stated about identifying as Black, I find that sometimes in safe spaces, because you've created a safe space for Black people, and there are times when that space have to be maintained where we can't be, everybody cannot just be Black. There's a time when we cannot apologize, because in Canada and in the central, as a friend of mine would call it, the central space of imperialism, especially with the 4%, we're being minoritized so much, marginalized to the fringes, where there has to come a time where we really have to secure that space and use that space for Blackness. So I just found that, you know, there is a way where we can define ourselves as Black. We're Africans, and those are our descendants, and or wherever, however we want to define it. But I think that we need to be very mindful of these spaces where if they're Black, they're Black, and they have to be maintained as such. Because I'm just thinking of even when we talk about safe space for women and other groups, and there are no apologies whatsoever. So we have to be, and it's okay to, as I think it's okay to exclude sometimes, because this is a way in which we maximize in terms of our visibility. So that's just my comment, and I just wanted to,
Yeah. Thank you for it.
Good evening. Thank you for your Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. I too am struggling with the idea of Blackness versus African versus Caribbean, and defining it in ways that would accommodate a range of readings from behaviors and attitudes that you see in your space. Because there are people who don't identify with being Black, but everything about their way of being is Black. And so for me, I had to kind of deconstruct what Blackness is. And I got this wonderful frame from Una Broadbar after talking to her for 2 seconds. And she said, you know, Blackness, she has this wonderful place called Black Space, right? The Black Space, which I have to go visit. She must be quarreling because I ain't reached yet. But I went once. She was talking about the idea of Blackness, or Black being that our relationship with Europe, our relationship with imperialism, our being Black is anyone or anyone who's had to survive the transatlantic slave trade and everything that was born out of that history. So that particular kind of struggle, she's saying, is a place, as a starting point for the idea of what Black is. And so when Marvin was talking about, it was Dessalines, our favorite Black person, who ripped the white out of the French flag and said anything that landed saw Black, is because he understands that anything that landed there had to go through that traumatic experience of having to face, I guess. And it's important for me too, because I don't have what you have, which is white people watching me whole day. But we live with white. No, I mean I'll talk plain. But I live with white structures. You understand? I live with white structures, right? And so the idea of freedom, the idea of oppression comes from having to work inside of Black structures and having to deconstruct those Black structures of whiteness, because there's now whiteness and Blackness. So for me, Blackness is anything that is working against those white structures. You understand? And trying to create or evolve a way of being that is more liberating and because we don't say D these days, uncolonizing and all that, right? So it's to deconstruct those structures and those ways of thinking. I just thought it interesting that you say you're not defining it, because I was wondering what happened with all these different quote-unquote Black bodies in all these different spaces that you've created. Was there any kind of dialogue between, I guess, Caribbean diasporic people and people from the African regions? And for us now in the Caribbean, we're contemplating the idea of first peoples falling under that designation Black because of their contact with Europe, or because of their annihilation by that contact with Europe. Yeah, so black for us, I guess now inside our work is kind of like an experience. So it's just, and then the juxtaposition of black and free. So to me, it's black on freedom, yeah, because you're juxtaposing it. And when Marvin spoke just now, he was talking about black being freedom itself and overturning that notion of I guess enslavement and all that. I'm rambling, but it just got me thinking about the fact that what do you do when you have to do this kind of work and research and you have to label something that is constantly shifting, right, and evolving, and inside of freedom exists because there's tension, because there's oppression. If there wasn't none, there wouldn't be no need for freedom talk. So I wanted to know what inside those conversations with the little people that you have in all these projects is happening with those little tensions in between those kind of different variations of blackness.
They're wide-ranging, right? And that's what I'm really interested in, is the conversations. Is space for those conversations, again, because of the ways that blackness is so collapsed into something that it's not necessarily even connected to anybody in particular. They're just tropes, right? And so the conversations that are emerging are wide-ranging. I see my role as creating space, facilitating space, trying to organize space to have those thoughts, places for us to have the thoughts in public spaces, to have them through the chapters that we're writing. I'm editing a special issue for Theatre Research in Canada about Black performance in Canada that's thinking about a wide range of Black performance. I'm co-editing with 2 other Black theatre practitioners a special issue of a Canadian Theatre Review, which is a magazine more like, it's a mix between trade magazines, so for practitioners as well as for academics. Again, the mandate there as an editor was to open it up and to reach as many different kinds of practitioners as we could, and to just facilitate a place for them to express whatever it means to them, really and truly. That's where I'm coming from. I don't see, I think that the tensions that you both have identified, and these are the kinds of questions and conversations that come up whenever this topic comes to the fore. Absolutely. And I think that that's like what I'm interested in, not in saying this is the answer, but what are the questions that we have? What are the various perspectives that we have? And understanding that there is space and it is valid, that we don't have to come to agreement, that we can come to discussion. And I don't know, I wonder a lot. I don't think that I'm in a position to create a safe space. While I appreciate the possibility of that, because I think that safe spaces require a lot of time and commitment and continuity, and a lot of conversations to determine what that word safe means and what each person in that needs. And so this is not a project where I'm working with the same group of people all of the time and can really, aside from the research team, right? And even that is transient because they're students, graduate, working on a thesis this term, can't be on the project anymore, have to take on 2 more jobs that pay more money, can't be on the project, right? All of those kinds of factors. So I think of it more like water, right? Like just trying to be free-flowing and go into the spaces where there's already some kind of structure and see what we can generate in there. What excites me about Black and Free as a topic and about the project is the openness of it, the expansiveness of it, the ways that consistently people map onto it in the ways that work for them. And how they see it, and they take it up and interpret it in the ways that speak to their experiences and their areas of expertise. So that is the perspective that I come to from it. Of course, I have my own thoughts about that, right? But as that is not, I think, as important as space, really. Like I didn't come to being a PhD or becoming a professor as someone who knew that's what I wanted to do as a child. I came to this work because I kept wanting to figure out how to mobilize resources And I was just having difficulty mobilizing resources and getting access to spaces. And so just thinking about my own particular skill set and strengths, this became the place where I could mobilize resources. And so that's what I'm doing. Yeah. You're welcome. I don't know how we're doing for time. So Marvin, I will leave that to you to let us know what the structure is around there. I'm happy. I don't know what that is, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, so we can, in terms of time, we can take 3 more comments or questions and we can put them in a class. Thank you.
So I want to thank you for coming to present today. I mean, this is really just to enforce what the last 2 persons said. When I came in and I saw the title, Black and Free, I was like, Black and Free, but everything black costs, everything black expensive. So, you know, that was an issue for me. And then it brought me back to a book that I'm currently reading. I don't remember the name of the writer, but it's titled All Black Girls Die Exhausted. And so what the writer does, she explores all the issues that black women face in a white society. And, you know, as Miss Commoner spoke about the putting of 2 different things together, juxtaposition, yes. I saw it again because really and truly, if it's black, if you're black, if you identify as black, if you grew up as black, it's never free. You know, you have to go through the struggles, you have to survive. And yeah, that's just my comment because, you know, it really hits something into my heart. Blessed love.
Thank you for it. You're making me think of one of the first PhD research assistants on the project, Janice Anderson. I went to Afropunk in New York and I did a series of interviews with different people. And then Jan was listening through the interviews. And what she identified was that every time I asked the question, so the question is, what does it mean? What does black and free mean to you? And every person I asked the question to when she was listening back through the tapes, paused. Other questions come with an answer. I asked that question and there was always this big pause, this silence. And so she began and is writing for the anthology about what does that silence mean? What does it mean when there is where the response to that question is brought with a moment of like contemplation and of working through what it is, and maybe the silence itself is speaking too. Like, what does that silence tell us? So, yes, that's just what you brought to mind when you talked about what you saw and what immediately came to you when you saw those 3 words together. Mm-hmm.
So, picking up on what Camille said, picking up on how we met,
Yes.
which was through a project that included Woodside and Black Space, right? And the idea of space and the comment about is it exclusionary? Mm-hmm. And just to reinforce what Nana Erna has taught me. I mean, in Black Space, one of the things that Black Space does is an annual gathering just ahead of emancipation. And she has insisted that that is an exclusionary space. Mm-hmm. And she insists on that because it is a space for the descendants of enslaved Africans in the New World to talk to one another, mm-hmm. without having to be concerned about who is not one of us listening in on us. So we don't have to perform for anybody else. And it's because she thinks we never had a chance to talk with each other about how we want to live our lives going forward. Right? So there needs to be a space where we can be. We.
Yes.
one tiny comment. Thank you again for a great presentation. As Camille said, we don't want to beat the dead horse, but I'm intrigued by the idea that after you've shared on Black and Free and what the great work you're doing, we went to focus so much on defining and theorizing around blackness as opposed to freedom. Because as far as I'm concerned, academics theorize on black too much. You have black, a medium blacker, argument done. But freedom and all it means for all of us can be such a longer conversation that I'd rather we look at who identify as free, even if it's just aspirational, and as opposed to black. 'Cause when it comes to black part, argument done.
Well, you're saying that in a Jamaican context. I'm right. I'm like, so the argument is not quite said and done in every context, right? And I think that's like what is, like, I don't know if I'm doing this project if I live here and I'm born and raised here. Yeah.
Because here we mightn't argue about how we define black, but all of us can argue. No matter how we look and shape and historically how we define ourselves, we all have different experiences of freedom. And that's a whole new convo.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in freedom and blackness. Yeah. I forgot to mention that I must have a few copies of Performing Female Blackness with me if anybody is interested in purchasing a copy. I do have some. That's a very good question, sorry. The cost is 15 US or 2,300 Jamaican.
All right, so I take it that we have taken the last question or comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Black people are always on stage. What does it mean to be black and free? It means to have a liberating mind, an artistic mind. None but ourselves can free our mind. What does it mean to be black? It means to be bloody black in attitude, experience, behavior, and will, free will. Firewoman, I'm very impressed with your four-streamed pioneering work at the University of Waterloo and the awesomely black womb space you have created for black people of color. And I'm not being redundant here, I mean black people of color. And thank you, Kamina, for that word, womb space, that you taught me. We really were happy, and still are, that you agreed to share with us this evening. I'm a little bit regretful that you are just 2 days too early. 'Cause Marvin, I could have had her on my panel on Thursday. I wonder if she wants to change her flight, a bit. I probably would pay the difference there. We're really looking forward to your publication, and of critical importance, we're looking forward to greater and further collaboration in this space as we move throughout this semester and beyond. I'm sure there will be a lot of opportunities for collaboration, particularly in performance research. And we do that very well here, particularly in this space, the School of Drama. I wouldn't call it a lament, but I think you are disappointed that you don't seem to have that many persons writing for children, particularly plays. But I give you Doreen Reed, and I give you Amina Blackwood Meeks. She's not here, and you can collaborate with them as well. They are good writers, and I think at least one of them would have attempted works for children. So, Marvin, thank you for going on leave and returning with a bang. I'm not even sure where you ran into this firewoman, Naila, but you brought her back to the space. And it tells me how much you love this space. You always are thinking of it wherever you go and how you can improve it. Thank you so very much for that. It's? Okay, great, great. And I want to thank all the departments and units which worked together at a very short notice to create this physical space here for, let me make sure I get the name, Naila. Yes, for Naila. I like firewoman. I'll be calling her that. Yes, to be able to present. Mama, thank you very much for producing such a brilliant, beautiful black mind. And for all of you who have come, it tells me how interested you are in good food, very good stuff, you know, not the usual pasa on the road. Yes, thank you so very much for coming, and those who didn't make it to this physical space, but I know you're here online, thank you also for being there. Thank you so very much, all of us, for coming. God bless you all.